the family did release the following statement. The family again asked me to express their sincerest gratitude to the entire world for their overwhelming response for their son. The family is grateful that they did not have to make a decision regarding whether or not to continue life support for their son. Like a good son, he was caring to the end and removed all guilt or stress from the family. He came into the world premature, and he left the world premature. Matthew's mother said, "Go home, hug your kids, and don't let a day go by without telling them that you love them."
The Laramie Project is a play by Moises Kaufman and the Tectonic Theater Project. We will be producing it at the Carroll Theater. We call it the Flex Theater here. It is a play about Matthew Shepard, who was killed in the late 90s in Laramie, Wyoming. It was later determined to be a hate crime because he was a gay student. And it made national headlines. After this tragic event, the Tectonic Theater Project came into Laramie and interviewed over 200 people in the community about what that was like, the experience of being in a town that they thought was safe and then finding out that this kid was so brutally murdered and that some of the people that they knew and loved that were raised in that town had committed the murder, and being inundated by the media. So this theater piece is supposed to be a representation of all the voices of the people who were in town at that time. I'm Kim SHIRE. I am the assistant theater professor at Carroll College, and I also have the title of Director of Theatrical Production. In this production, I am the lighting designer and an actor. We have 27 student actors and 6 faculty and staff members involved as actors in this production. To put together the show, we have a director, we have a lighting designer, a costume designer, media designer, projection designer, props, and sound designer, master electrician, and a stage manager. And that makes up our production team.
My name is John RAUSCH. I am a local theater director and actor, and I'm the director of the LaramieProject this coming semester at Carroll College. So being the director of a play is an opportunity to wear a lot of hats. So there's one sort of central focal point where the designers, the technicians, the people who are doing all of the support structure, if you will, for the actors, they all have to come together in a unified fashion, and it's the director's job to have those conversations to make sure that the people who are worried about the lighting designer, costume designer, set designer, sound designer, those are probably the big players. All of those folks are singing from the same sheet of music. Actors all go focus-wise through the director. It's the director whose job on a performance level is to make sure that the overall arch of any given play is followed to an extent at least that allows a unification of all of those parts. So you shape and craft the mood of the piece from start to finish, and that's really the primary function of the director.
I would have done it, but there was nothing I could do, and I was just yelling at the top of my lungs like, "Hey, wake up, hello!" But he didn't move, he didn't flinch, he didn't anything.
The way the Tectonic Theater Project works when they're devising a piece of theater is they develop a series of moments, and some of those moments are as short as 2 mini monologues, less than a minute, and some of them are 3 or 4 pages long, where you have 7, 8, 9 actors on stage at a time. And then they find their favorite moments and organize them into an order, which becomes the script. So for the Laramie project, oh gosh, I couldn't even guess how many moments, but it's divided into 3 acts, and each act has 20 or 30 moments within it. And within those moments, then you have many actors coming on stage to talk. The light goes to them, and then the light sweeps over to someone else who talks. And they might stay and listen, or they might disappear back into the crowd, just depending on how that particular moment is developed with the director.
It's a really interesting, different kind of directing job, because the same sculpting kind of has to happen, but there isn't the same, you're not working in the same sort of circumstances. It's not usually 2 or 3 people on stage at one time. So you have this huge long series of monologues that people get to piece together, and what you end up with in a big playing space is a lot of traffic cop playing. I got to know where I want the focus to be at any given moment. I need to know how to get my actor pieces in the right places. We're doing a few different things too because it's in the round. So we'll be having audience on all 4 sides. We have a blank slate of a playing space that's roughly 20 feet wide and 36 feet long, something like that. We will hang a number of different sizes of projection screens. We're going to have 16 total screens up above us. The show, because it is so woven together, it's very carefully woven together with pieces of many different interviews of people from Laramie, Wyoming. Those weavings, if you will, get painted for the audience in light. And light becomes much more of our scenery than anything else. The various actors may carry a chair or some small prop, that kind of stuff onto the stage, but we're not going to have any doorways, no standing walls, nothing that impedes the imagination and or the ability to see it from all 4 sides. So we have this environment that can be just about anything we want it to be, based on the imagery that we put up on the screens, the manipulation of lighting, if you will. It's a very theatrical event.
It is always a challenge to light a show in the round in the first place. So we have to try to capture the faces of actors who are standing 3 feet from the people in the front row without capturing the faces of the people in the front row. So that's a challenge in the first place. So we have to bring light from a steeper angle so that it's not spilling so much on the audience. And then with LaramieProject, it is basically a series of short monologues that weave in and out within each other. Sometimes there's a conversation, but most of the time we're bouncing from this person talking to this person talking to this person talking. And the director wanted to keep people on stage who had finished their moment sometimes to still partially be in light, but then to have the focus of the light on the person who's talking. And what we came up with was lighting 13 spots on the stage. It's just how it happened to work out. And as he's blocking the show, he's saying, go to the number 8, go to the number 7, go to the number 5. And then I, as lighting designer, have to take all of that and program in over 250 cues, so that as this person stops talking, the moving lights move to the next person who's talking, to the next person who's talking, to the next person who's talking. And I think it's going to be exciting. We're trying to incorporate a lot of the technology that we have in the space this time, to use our color capabilities, to use our focusing capabilities, and then the moving head fixtures are a new component that we haven't used before in a show.
What were you thinking? What the hell were you thinking?
I'm Mitchell Wheeler. I am the assistant director and media designer for this play. And what really drew me to it, first of all, I was really excited that just to hear that Carol was approaching a play like this. It's a huge undertaking with, a very powerful message. And I was like, I want to be a part of this, but I didn't necessarily want to be on stage for it. So I talked to Kim. I was like, do you think John wants an assistant director? And he said that he did, and so I got to jump on board with that. And then in one of our early production meetings, they were looking for someone to do some media design too, and I was like, I guess that's me. So in the assistant director role, I really have just kind of been helping John out with whatever he needs. We went through a lot of the casting together and did some of the blocking with him, just having meetings about, you know, what his vision for the show is and how I can help that along. And the media designer was in the same vein of that, except with a more specific set of goals. I was gathering images and exporting them for the projecting screens we have around the space. And so that was mostly just kind of, he gave me a list of things that he'd like to see projected around the space and was like, go find these for me. And so I did.
I'm SAVANNAH Christiansen. I am the stage manager here at Carroll College. With this show, I have around 500 cues to call throughout the entire show. So that's been a huge learning process because most shows I might have 100. So there's more focus that goes into it. And I have to wrangle around 33 actors and manage their schedules in order to build our rehearsal schedule. So it's constant battle of, okay, which of my 33 can I have for this 20-minute segment? And it's a lot of organization that goes into it.
All of us get together every Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock to talk about what's up for the next week and what progress needs to happen for the week. So also we know what's going on. If the costumer changes something drastically, all of a sudden we have a lot of white costumes, the lighting designer needs to know about that. So we talk together.
Being the choreographer of all the technical stuff is a great way to look at the director's function in a show like this, because you really do have to be, and you have to give your actors every bit of opportunity to understand all of that from a very early time in the rehearsal process, because it is critical for them to know when they're coming in, where they need to be out of their seat, where they need to be standing, because if you're not ready, the light shifts from you to the next guy seamlessly, almost instantaneously, and you have to understand that even though the light is coming up on you, there's a projection that people need to be able to look at as well. So it goes from here to there, and the focus is manipulated that way for the audience, but the actor has to be able to understand their part in that focus. And if they're not prepared for knowing what it is they're waiting for, then everything starts to sort of mash on top of each other and it gets kind of muddy. So clarity is the job of the director, I guess.
Hi, I'm Kathy Day, and I'm an employee here at Carroll, and I play Marge Murray, who is a very interesting, fun character. She was a social service worker and a bartender most of her life, and knows everyone in town, and is the mother of Reggie, who is the police officer who found Matthew Shepard, or was called to the scene.
And so I just said, oh, for God's sakes, lighten up, Francis!
Hi, my name is Daniel OLSZEWSKI. I'm playing Doug Laws, Philip Dubois, Aaron Kreifels, and Jedediah Schultz. I've acted before, and I've always had one-role shows, and bounced around from musicals to Shakespeare to modern, and I really wanted to try something different that really pushed me as an actor. And I know when I saw this show that this was going to be one that was going to be something that would challenge me to dive into multiple roles and be able to portray that, because I've always acted in, I would say, comedies, and so going to something a lot more serious was going to be a challenge and something different for me that I was really excited to do.
We're trying to produce plays this year that talk about how we are all one. We might have different opinions, but we're all one race of humans, and trying to find a way to speak together about how we feel about things and to come to community through that.
My name is Elvira Roncalli, and I teach philosophy here at Carroll College. I'm also the chair of the philosophy department. When I heard that they were looking for interested people to act in Laramie, I was very much attracted at the possibility of being part of something that I see as some form of social action, be part of making present to the public the reality of hate, and in a certain way for me it would be a way to bring it to life again to the people that perhaps students, some of them were not alive at the time they have never heard of Matt Shepard. And it's the possibility to get people to think about that, what happened, and trying to come to terms with the fact that there are indeed cases of hate that lead to violence.
We know that topically on campus, issues of gay rights in general, incidents of intolerance, if you will, have occurred in the recent past here on campus. So we were looking for a vehicle that made sense, not just as a historical piece. It's not just because it's coming up on 20 years of the event of Matthew Shepard being abducted and beaten to death, but also because it's still a challenge. It's still a culturally present problem, even on a college campus, on lots of college campuses. So it was a pretty natural choice to choose the Laramie Project as a good tool to help us speak about the issues that we were starting to care about.
Well, this play is, I think as most people know, is a pretty incredibly powerful play, and even though it's coming up on its 20th anniversary, many of the challenges, many of the themes that run throughout the play confront us today. But I was actually had been a few years into my career in higher education. At another university, I was in student services when the incident happened in Laramie. And again, I was in Great Falls, Montana, in a small, relatively rural, small campus. And so what happened in Laramie was very close. I hit home a lot to many of the students with whom I was working. So an opportunity now to be in that play and to share my experience of having lived through that with students, some of whom weren't even alive during that time, is really compelling to me.
It is a show, I would say, in today's era that anyone can identify with. I think that there are so many portrayals of characters and opinions that you see in the show that anybody can watch it and identify with something that happens in the show. And especially around such a hot topic of homosexuality, that I think it is important for people to see, especially because it really just brings out the whole spectrum of opinions.
I think the Laramie Project goes to the heart of what we're doing this season, because it really is the voices of over 200 people in the town of Laramie, Wyoming. We hear from people who are very hateful. We hear from people who are very loving and open. And we hear from a lot of people whose opinions are moving. They're changing. And I think that's what's inspiring for me about this piece, is that we as human beings can start in one place, and through dialogue and through working through issues that come up with other people, we can change where we stand on issues.
This is a very reflective piece, because everybody gets to talk about their memories of the event, some of which are raw and fresh, some of which are aided by the benefit of a little bit of time, because these interviews are conducted from a very early stage in the process to its conclusion after these trials are over.
It's something we call documentary theater, where we're producing something that's not a work of fiction, but it's been fictionalized so that the people who are playing the different roles are sometimes speaking verbatim what an actor who was, or a person who was experienced it said in an interview. And sometimes I understand that the pieces are a compilation of what several people might have spoken. They had over 200 interviews, and yet there's only 67 characters in the production.
Laramie
So
is a beautiful town. A town secluded enough that you can have your own identity. A town with a strong sense of community. Everyone knows everyone. A town with a personality that most larger cities are stripped of. Now, after Matthew, I would say that Laramie is a town defined by an accident, by a crime. We've become Waco, we've become Jasper.
So I got 4 characters that were very different opinions. And it has been, as an actor, a super good experience. I love working with John. He's really been pushing us hard to bring out what the different characters mean and how can you portray them differently. And especially when I do have Jedediah Schultz and Aaron Kreifels, who are very similar, they're university students, and they have, I would say, a similar confusion going on, but just kind of different takes on it. And I would say just bringing out the differences, how can you act those, how can you portray them differently. As we're coming to opening night, I'm super excited. Dress rehearsals is my favorite week because you get to see the work everyone else has put in. And it really feels like a show during dress rehearsals. And not only that, but you get to see, I like every time I'm in there watching, I get to feel the power of the show that I read from that script. And it's awesome and amazing to see that come out from everybody else working hard. And so as we get closer, I know that excitement's just going up and people are taking pride in it because it is becoming a final product.
Doing the Laramie Project, it's really, I think it hits home for a lot of our actors and the community. It's a really big deal for us to do, and the audience isn't going to leave like they left with noises off, or they're going to be feeling, they're going to feel something, whether they're on the side of Fred Phelps or they're a person who doesn't know how they feel with their sexuality, and now they have something they have this outlet that they can see. And I think everybody that leaves is going to feel something. And it's not just, they didn't spend 2 hours sitting here to get a laugh. Like, there's going to be a message that connects to somebody, every single person in that house, one way or another. And I think that's the biggest, it's the best thing that we can get out of the show. It's going to reach everybody, and we know there's a purpose to this. And with everything going on around the world right now, I think this show was the perfect time to do this. It's needed right now, and I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when they come in. It's going to be wonderful.
It's not pleasant whatsoever. I don't want it there. I want to get it out. It's the biggest part for me, is seeing that picture in my head. And it's kind of unbelievable to me, that I happen to be the one that found him. Because the big question with me, with my religion, is why did God want me to find him?
This play brings me to think about what is hate. Is hate the denial of love? Is hate an expression of desire of annihilate, do away with whomever or ideas that do not align with what I believe to be right and true. And that kind of divisiveness is clearly something that we need to be able to deal with in our society. And I think in doing plays, in coming together, in being present to one another wherever we happen to be, and be able to express our differences is crucial.